Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're traveling back in time a bit, back to 1859 Brazil, with Casimiro de Abreu's As Primaveras. It's a poetry collection, and
It's incredible how these poems written so long ago still resonate.
yeah,
They connect with us on this really deep level.
yeah, it's like Abreu, like he understood something about the human experience, you know, something universal,
Mm.
and that's what we're going to explore today. What is it about Abreu's work that makes it connect with readers, even now, centuries later?
Well, to get that, I think we have to start with Abreu himself. I mean, his life was marked by this feeling of displacement. Like he was born in Brazil,
Mm.
but then spent a significant part of his life in Portugal.
Oh, wow. So being away from home really comes through in his poetry then.
Yes, you can feel the longing in every line.
Wow.
That longing, that yearning, it's captured in the Portuguese word saudade. And that's like a key theme throughout As Primaveras.
Saudade. I've always thought saudade was such a fascinating concept.
Yeah.
It's more than just missing something. It's like a deep yearning, almost melancholic,
Hmm.
for something or someone that could be gone forever.
That's a really good way to put it. And Abreu really captures that essence of saudade perfectly in poems like Cansado no Exilio and Minha Terra.
Samba Gazilha Minha Terra. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt that? That ache for a place you can't return to or a time that's passed?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think we've all had those moments where we long for something we can't have, and that's what makes Abreu's poetry so relatable. He's writing about these universal human experiences of yearning.
He makes it so real too, like in Nolar, when he describes this bird without a nest sighing in the afternoon, it's like you can feel that displacement, that need to belong.
It's such a powerful image, and
Yeah.
it's just one example of how Abreu uses nature to mirror his emotions. Birds, flowers, landscapes, especially things connected to Brazil, they all become these symbols of his inner world.
So like the singing Sobiá bird is a good example, right?
Yeah.
This common bird in Brazil, but in Abreu's poetry, it's a symbol of joy, longing for home.
Exactly. And then you have things like the wilting rose, which often symbolizes lost love, or a turbulent sea, to
Hmm.
mirror his inner turmoil. It's incredible how he uses these elements to really evoke specific emotions.
Wow, he's a master of symbolism. And I think that's another reason why his poems feel so relevant today. We might not all be familiar with Brazilian plants and animals, but we understand the emotions behind them.
Right. Yeah, because at the end of the day, he's writing about the human experience. Love, loss, longing, the search for identity and belonging, and those are themes that everyone can relate to no matter their background.
That's a good point. And speaking of love, that's another huge part of Abreu's work. He explores it in all its forms, doesn't he? Like
Hmm.
romantic love, familial love, even platonic love.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
you see this yearning for a lost love in Rosa Murcha, this tender, almost heartbreaking affection for his mother in Minha Mai, and then even playful flirtation in Moreninha.
Wow. And he doesn't shy away from any of the emotions love brings up. Like we see the joyous anticipation, the despair, these quiet moments of reflection. It's like he paints a complete picture of what it means to love and be loved.
Right. And it's fascinating how he uses different poetic forms to express these different sides of love. He plays with sonnets, ballads, even longer poems, all to capture this range of human
He
experience.
doesn't just stop at romantic themes, though.
No,
Barry delves into some deep philosophical stuff about life itself.
he does. And I think that's where his work really becomes more than just love poems and speaks to something deeper in all of us. Like, for example, in Tres Cantos, he outlines three stages of life. So you have childhood filled with hope, youth consumed by love, and then finally adulthood, often marked by saudade.
He's saying that Saudade is more than missing home. It's an inevitable part of being human. As we get older and change, we long for what was.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Thanks.
It highlights how Abreu's work is about so much more than a place and speaks to something much more profound about the human condition.
And it's all woven together with Brazilian imagery. Even though he's in Portugal, it's like he carries Brazil in his heart.
Oh, absolutely. And that ties into what was happening in art at the time. There was this movement called romantic nationalism where artists used their work to celebrate their homelands and build unique cultural identities.
So Abreu's poems become these powerful statements of his Brazilian identity.
Exactly. So, for example, Minha Terra is like this love letter to Brazil's natural beauty. And then in Brazilianas, he explores local culture, shows us everyday life with characters like Moreninha.
So he's trying to bridge the gap between where he is and where his heart is. And he does it so beautifully with these simple yet powerful images.
Yes.
And that need to connect, to belong, is something I think everyone relates to, even if we haven't experienced the same exile as Abreu.
Right,
I think
right.
we all feel that pull towards something or someone that desire to find our place. And Abreu gives a voice to that yearning in such a profound and poetic way.
Yeah, I think that's what makes As Primaveras such an enduring work of art. It captures what it means to be human, to feel deeply, to long for connection, and to search for meaning in a world that can often feel fragmented and uncertain.
That's beautifully said. I think that's a great place to pause. We've covered a lot in this first part of our deep dive into As Primaveras, but there's so much more to discuss.
Yeah.
So we'll be back in a bit to look at some specific poems and break down Abreu's masterful use of language and imagery. But for now, take some time to think about saudade, those moments of longing and yearning that have shaped your own life. We'll see you soon for part 2.
See ya.
Welcome back to our deep dive into As Primaveras. Before the break, we were talking about saudade, that deep longing that seems to be everywhere in Abreu's work.
Yeah, and we talked a bit about how he uses nature to express it, almost like a mirror for what's happening inside.
Right. But he also brings in these strong declarations of being Brazilian, even though he's writing all this from Portugal.
Yeah, that tension between where he is and where his heart is really comes through, especially in a poem like Minha Terra, which translates to my land, right? It's almost like a love letter to Brazil.
It really is. He creates these incredibly vivid pictures with his words. Like he talks about palm trees, the sabia bird singing the deep blue sky. It's like you can almost feel the sun on your skin when you read it.
And he doesn't ignore the harder parts of Brazil's history either. He talks about the fight for independence from Portugal, so he's acknowledging the country's past.
Which I think makes the expressions of love and longing even stronger, right? Like he's saying, this is where I'm from, this is a part of me, even though I'm not there.
Exactly. And it goes back to what we were saying before about saudade being more than just missing a place. It's about carrying that feeling with you, letting it become a part of who you are.
And Abreu does that really well by grounding his feelings in specific details.
Yeah.
Like he mentions other famous Brazilian writers and lovers, Dirceu and Marilia. So he's connecting his own experience to a larger shared history.
It really makes you think about what those touchstones are for us. What are those people, places, or even ideas that we carry with us? The things that shape who we are, even when we're away from them?
That's a great question. And I think it's something that Abreu's poetry really makes us consider. It makes us think about our own ties to different places, cultures, our own identities.
Definitely.
Now, speaking of connection, another poem that stood out to me was Moreninha. It's got a lighter tone than some of the others, but it's just as captivating.
Morenina is really interesting because it shows a different side of Abreu, this playful, almost teasing side of him. It's a love poem, but there's also this sense of flirtation, almost a little mischief in the way he describes the woman.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He's so captivated by her beauty and describes her with such vivid details, like her braids tied with ribbon, the flowers in her hair. She becomes the embodiment of youthful energy and Brazilian charm.
He's totally smitten.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's more to it than just attraction. Don't you think he's putting his longing for Brazil onto her?
Oh, for sure. She represents everything he misses about home. It's like he's saying, if I can't be in Brazil, at least I can be with someone who embodies its spirit.
That's such a clever way to add layers of meaning. He's not just writing about a girl. He's exploring those deeper themes of longing, belonging, and searching for connection.
And it ends with this open question. And do you keep the beautiful flowers, the roses of your heart? It's like he's asking if she can truly understand and return his feelings, or if this is just another passing moment in his life.
Right.
It leaves you with this uncertainty.
Yeah.
Which reflects Abreu's own experience in exile, right? He wants that connection, but he's not sure if he'll ever really find it.
And it's like his own life is unresolved.
Exactly. Which brings us back to saudade. It's not just about missing something or someone. It's about dealing with that, not knowing if you'll ever get back what you've lost.
And that's a universal feeling, something we can all relate to, even if we haven't been exiled from a country. We've all felt that ache for something we can't have.
You know it's true.
So far, we've talked about saudade, nature, love, and identity. But Abreu also goes into some more serious themes, like in the poem Tres Cantos. He has this really interesting reflection on how life happens in cycles.
Right. He uses that metaphor of a song to show the stages of life.
Yeah, he breaks it down into the 3 stages we talked about before. Hope, love, and saudade.
Right.
Childhood is a song of hope. Youth is a song about love. But then you reach adulthood, and the song becomes this lament filled with saudade, that longing for what used to be.
It's a bit sad, isn't it? Like he's saying, Enjoy these good times while you can because they don't last forever.
Yeah.
But it's also beautiful to just accept that, to recognize that this is how life works. Abreu isn't afraid to explore the darker, more melancholic parts of being human.
And I think that's a big reason why his work is so powerful. He's not giving us these fluffy love poems or simple patriotic songs. He's giving us this real and honest look at the complexities of life, love, and loss.
And he does it all with such grace and artistry. It's no wonder people are still moved by his writing over 150 years later.
We've only just touched on As Primaveras in this deep dive, but I feel like we've already discovered so much.
We have. But there's still more to uncover.
Oh, yeah.
After the break, we're going to take an even closer look at how Abreu uses language and imagery. We'll see how he uses sound and rhythm to make such a strong emotional impact.
So stay tuned for part 3, where we'll break down some of the specific techniques Abreu uses to create these timeless and moving poems. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been talking about longing, belonging, and identity in Casimiro de Abreu's As Primaveras. But I think it's time to talk about the words themselves. How he creates that magic you know.
Absolutely. We've touched on the symbolism, but there's so much more to uncover in his language. One thing that always stands out to me is how musical his poetry is.
It's true. Even just reading it on the page, you could almost feel the rhythm and flow of the words.
Exactly. And that's not an accident. Abreu was a master at using sound to create that musicality and make his poems even more emotionally powerful.
Oh, wow. So like in Canção do Exílio, when he keeps repeating that phrase, "Non exhalas, meu Brasil,"
Ugh.
which means, "You do not exhale, my Brazil." It really emphasizes how deep his longing is.
Yeah, you can practically hear the heartbreak in his voice, that pain of being away from the place he loves.
Right.
And then in Juriti, he compares his own sad singing to the sound of the Juriti bird. It creates this beautiful, melancholic atmosphere that just draws you in.
It's amazing how he uses the sounds of nature to reflect his own feelings, like in Minha Terra, when he describes the breeze whispering through the mango trees. You can almost feel that breeze and hear those rustling leaves as you read it.
Right.
Yeah. It's like he's creating a whole sensory experience with his words. It's not just about what he's saying, but how he's saying it.
And I think that's a big reason why people still connect with his work today. He's using something primal, something we all understand, even across languages and cultures. We might not all speak Portuguese or know Brazilian nature, but we can still feel the emotions behind the sounds and images.
We've talked a lot about longing and love, but Abreu also gets into some pretty heavy philosophical stuff, especially about life and death.
He does. In poems like Tres Cantos and No Ledo, he offers these powerful reflections on how life is a cycle and how death is something we all face.
In Tres Cantos, he uses the metaphor of a song to show the different stages of life. And it's so striking how he does that. Childhood is this hymn of hope. Youth is a love song. But then when you reach adulthood, it becomes this lament full of saudade.
Right. It's really brilliant.
Yeah.
It shows how our experiences and emotions change over time as we go through life. And it reminds us that even though joy and love are important parts of being, human loss and longing are there too. It's all part of who we are.
And then in No Leito, which means in bed, we see Abreu facing his own mortality. You know, he's writing from this place of vulnerability where he's scared of dying young and not having done enough with his life.
It's a very raw and emotional poem.
Yeah.
But even though he's facing death, he finds comfort in love. You know, he asks his beloved to remember him, to keep his memory alive.
Right. It's like he's saying, don't forget me.
Yeah.
It's a powerful testament to how strong love is and how much people want to leave their mark on the world.
It really is. And it makes you think about your own legacy. Like, what do you want to leave behind? What stories do you want to tell? What impact do you want to have?
Wow, those are some big questions. And I think that's what's so great about Abreu's poetry. It doesn't just speak to our emotions, but it also makes us think about life, love, and our place in the world.
I agree.
So after all this time with As Primaveras, what are your final thoughts? What makes his work so timeless?
For me, it's a few things. His honesty, his mastery of language, and his ability to connect with those universal emotions that we all share as human beings.
Beautifully said. Abreu's poems are truly a gift. They remind us that even though time moves on and cultures change, the human heart stays the same. We all feel love loss and that longing for connection.
It's been amazing to explore Casimiro de Abreu with you today. And to our listeners, we encourage you to find As Primaveras and discover its beauty for yourselves. You might be surprised by how much these poems, written so long ago, still resonate with us in the modern world. So until next time, keep searching, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the world around you.